Hey, what's good? Prashil here, and I hope you all will have a great Halloween. But today, we're going to be comparing the iPhone 14 Pro against the 15 Pro and doing a camera test. Now, these are both pretty similar devices, only a generation apart, with, however, a significant enough difference in price as the 14 Pro is now a year old. So I decided to take both of these phones out and about and just shoot a bunch of different videos and photos in different scenarios to see whether or not there was an actual difference between the two in terms of image and video quality. And to start us off, I wanted to talk about the specs of both of these devices. So let's get straight into it. So with the 15 Pro, you get a 48 megapixel primary f1.8 wide lens with sensor shifting optical image stabilization, supported by a 12 megapixel f2.8 telephoto and a 12 megapixel f2.2 120 degree ultra wide lens, along with a LiDAR scanner for depth perception for AR as well as low light conditions, and you also get a 12 megapixel f1.9 wide sensor for your selfie camera. So with the 14 Pro, you get a 48 megapixel f1.8 wide sensor with sensor shifting optical image stabilization, a 12 megapixel f2.8 telephoto, and a 12 megapixel f2.2 120 degree ultra wide lens. Sound familiar? On top of this, you also get a LiDAR scanner for depth perception and low light photography, and you get a single 12 megapixel f1.9 wide lens for your selfie camera. Now, both of these phones can shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second and 1080p at 240 frames per second in 10-bit HDR. So it's interesting because both of the sensors in the 14 and 15 Pro seem identical, just with the 15 Pro having slightly updated sensors all around. So the only thing spookier than a haunted house this Halloween is the price of the new 15 Pro, which has been bumped up by $100. Alright, so these are some pictures I took of a bunch of objects in different environments and shooting conditions, and I gotta say, right off the bat, at a first glance, I didn't really notice much of a difference in the images other than a slight difference in color produced by the 15 Pro over the 14 Pro due to what I can only assume is slightly updated computational photography. So for the most part, I didn't really notice much of a difference in the images captured on both of these devices when checking on the phones themselves. However, when transferring the images over onto my PC and checking them out on my monitor, I did notice sharper detail on the images produced by the 15 Pro. However, this is due to the computational side of things, as the 15 Pro outputs 24 megapixel photos as default, as opposed to the 12 megapixel images produced by the 14 Pro. Now, I will say one thing, while both of these devices did have decent dynamic range and good color grading, I will say that I think the 15 Pro slightly edges out the 14 Pro when it comes to the overall balancing of exposures, but again, this was just a slight advantage that the 15 Pro had over the 14 Pro that you really can't tell unless you're actually looking for it. Overall, I think that both of these devices performed really well, with the 15 Pro slightly edging out the 14 Pro. But even then, it's not that much of a leap as I expected it to be, especially with the newer price tag of the 15 Pro. Alright, so when it comes to video, I generally couldn't tell the difference between the outputted footage from the 14 and the 15 Pro. They honestly perform near identically. I shot this footage on both phones in 4K at 60 frames per second, and I got really smooth, crisp footage that was well stabilized. Now, if you're someone who likes to take a lot of POV shots of different types of scenery, especially when traveling, I think either of these phones would serve you well. And just a quick side note, they also both perform really well when vlogging, so that is something to take into consideration as well. Moving on to low light photos, I will say that once again, the differences aren't as pronounced as I thought it would be, with the 15 Pro offering a slight bump in image detail, and there is a slight difference in colors in some shots. But overall, the computational photography on both phones is great, which pretty much shifts the focus away from the hardware differences in my opinion, but nonetheless leads to a good retention of detail in both phones, with photos being bright but not overexposed or noisy, producing some of the best low-light photos you can get out of a smartphone in 2023. So yeah, overall I will say that I was impressed with both of these devices. Alright, so now that we've seen the images and the video produced by both of these devices side by side, what does this actually tell us? And I think the first thing you'll notice right off the bat is that these new modern Apple phones really do a great job at producing great images and video, especially when it comes from the 14 Pro lineup and above. The 48 megapixel bump up in spec was a great move by Apple, and combined with their tried and tested brilliant computational photography, it honestly produces some great shots in a variety of different shooting scenarios. Now, do take into consideration that the 15 Pro with its inflated price tag does give you a marginal performance gain over the 14 Pro. Now, this isn't a leap by any means, but it is a better all-around camera system. With that being said, if it was my money, I generally think I would go for the 14 Pro, and then with the 100 to 150 USD that I'd be saving on a brand new 14 Pro, I would honestly just use that money to pick up a pair of AirPods Pros, and then I could chuck those in, listen to some music while I'm going out and about, taking some photos and content, and just having a good time. Now, with the 14 Pro, I will say that another benefit you have over the 15 Pro is the fact that there is a secondhand market for it. And you can actually pick up an iPhone 14 Pro refurbished for about $300 to $400 cheaper than a brand new iPhone 15 Pro, which to me is actually pretty decent. Because again, you get those savings which you could put towards anything really. It could be a shotgun mic or even a gimbal to take better video. And personally, I'd rather just take this route because with the 15 Pro, the performance gains for me just weren't it. I mean, it is a step up in the right direction, but that's all it is. It's just one little step up. So yeah, these have been my thoughts on the iPhone 15 Pro versus the 14 Pro when it comes to the camera system. I really am excited to see what Apple does with the 16 Pro. I'm hoping there'll be a bit more of a gap between the 15 Pro and the 16 Pro. So yeah, fingers crossed for that. Alright, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. But for now, looks like we're out of time. So till we meet again.